Descope supports authentication within iOS applications using the Descope Swift SDK. In this video, we will cover adding Descope authentication to your iOS application. We are going to focus on OTP authentication for user signup and user verification. We will start with installing the SDK within our project. This is our Descope Swift sample app. You can find this sample application within the Descope sample app repository within GitHub. In order to add the Descope Swift SDK, you will click on the Descope Swift sample app or your project. You will then click on the project, package dependencies, and then click to add. Once you are within the Swift package manager, you can search for the URL of the Swift Descope SDK. This will load further information on the SDK and allow you to change the dependency rule. Once you have made your changes for the dependency rule, you can click Add Package to add the package to your project. Once this pop-up shows up, click Add Package again. Now that we've followed the instructions for installing the Descope SDK, we will then look at how we will import and configure the project. There are two ways to initialize and configure your Descope SDK. You can configure just the Descope project ID, or you can also configure with the base URL. Within our sample app, we use user-defined variables for the base URL and project ID. We will copy the project ID from the Descope console. Then we paste this project ID within Xcode's build settings. If your project is using a custom CNAME, you can also configure the base URL. From here, we'll then complete the imports as necessary and also configure. We will be using the dscope.config for our initialization, and we will be pulling the project ID and the base URL from our Xcode build settings. Within our scene delegate, we have imported the Descope kit and have also initialized the Descope SDK by capturing the project ID and base URL from our build settings and initialized with the Descope config. The Descope Swift SDK sample app is built out with the various authentication methods. As we will be focusing on OTP, we will start by looking at the OTP. Here we have multiple options, but we are focusing on the sign up within this tutorial. Here within the sign up, we accept the name of the user, the email for the user, and a phone number for the user. Here we can see the sign up view for OTP. We capture the name, email, and phone number, and we pass it to an OTP sign up function. Once sign up completes, we will then pass to the OTP verify. Within the application, we have a Descope wrappers file. Here we can see the OTP signup and the OTP verify functions. These have been predefined for ease of this tutorial. We will copy the code from our documentation. Once we have the code from our documentation, we will change a few of the items in order to allow for us to use what we have pulled from our application. For this tutorial, we will change this code in order to make this more easily structured with our application. Since we are bringing in the delivery method, we are going to utilize a if statement to verify if it's via email or SMS. Once we have this if statement, we can utilize both the email and SMS methods of OTP signup. Since we already bring in the login ID for the user, we can also remove this section. We can then also update the user with the information captured from our application. In order to wait for this section of code to complete before moving the user to the verify screen, we will wrap this with a task and add completion handling. In order to capture the Descope error and pass back to the view, I'm capturing this specifically as a Descope error. Upon successful completion, we will set the completion handler to true for the completed status and empty for the error. If the completion fails, we will set the status to false and return the Descope error. Let's try it out. We'll go into OTP, sign up. We'll complete the sign up form. We will focus on OTP email for this tutorial. Once we click OTP email, we will see some data in the console showing that we successfully initiated OTP signup. We can then see that we received the OTP to Chris Plus OTP at Descope.com. Now we need to implement the verification. Once the signup completes and receives the completion handler, we will be redirected to the Verify OTP view. The Verify OTP view then calls the OTP verify, and once this has been completed and the handler has returned true, we will be redirected to the OTP logged in view. We will go back to the docs and go down to user verification, and we will then copy this section of code. Once we have copied the code from the documentation portal, we will clean up similarly to how we cleaned up the OTP signup. Since we are already bringing in the delivery method from the function call, we can remove it, as well as the login ID, as that's already coming in. Similarly to the OTP signup, we want to pass the Descope error back to the view. We can copy this piece down to the below piece and also copy the section for printing the Descope error as well as returning the failed handler. We will also pass back the successful completion. And again, we will wrap this with a task. Let's now try OTP signup and verify. We will go to OTP, complete the signup form, and then send the OTP code via email. We will take the received OTP code and validate it. The Descope session will be printed to the console. As we can see, the user has been created within the Descope project, and the email has been validated. To see more information about the Descope session, you can open the session type from the package and view the various items like the session token, refresh token, and further details on the user and its job. To recap this tutorial, we use the Swift SDK built by Descope in order to add OTP signup and verification within a simple Swift iOS application.